The key is communication. And if parents, coaches, players, and referees communicate more, it actually would solve the problem.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen and players. This is episode 6 of the Youth Soccer Podcast. And today we're going to look at referees and parent behavior on the sidelines, a very controversial subject. And we'll start by just getting into the weeds of the matter by asking Paul and Ricky, what is the current state of affairs with referees and parents on the sidelines and their behavior at the moment? Paul?
Yeah,
Sorry,
not great. And I think one of the main reasons it's probably not great is a combination of two things. The main thing, parents, players, and coaches, most don't actually fully understand the laws of the game. And so they're seeing something that's different to what a referee's seeing. And so that obviously creates an immediate conflict because a parent or a coach or a player is convinced that the ref's wrong when the reality is they probably just don't fully understand the laws of the game. And then the other part to that is from the ref side, I've been a ref since I was 16, so I understand it from that side. From the ref side, there's a bit of an arrogance and an unwillingness to engage with players and coaches and certainly parents. And so it really creates a bit of a divide there it's difficult to bridge that gap, to be honest. And so it causes a lot of problems.
Would you suggest the current state of affairs are in a negative, Paul?
Yeah, it's kind of been going downhill for a long time, really. To be honest, just trying to establish a better relationship between parents, coaches, players, and referees via communication. That probably is at the top of it. Communicating, right? Whatever problems we have and anything we argue about, most of it, you can argue with someone on social media or, you read something someone says and you're like, oh, he's a bit of an idiot. And then you talk to them in person and you have a conversation with 5 minutes and you change your mind and you go, no, they're actually a fairly rational person. And the key is communication. And if parents, coaches, players, and referees communicate more, it actually would solve the problem. But I think there's just a bit of a hesitation on the part of referees to engage in that communication. And that's a big contributing factor.
So you think there is a chance maybe in the near future or the future that we can start that communication, get the communications lines a bit better? You think that's what we have to do?
I mean, we can talk about it, right? We can say, let's communicate more and we'd like to have more communication. Are the referees going to be accepting and open to that communication? I don't know. We can talk about it all day, but until it actually happens and they start communicating, there won't really be any progress made for the reason I said right at the start, which is most or many players, coaches and parents don't fully understand the laws of the game. So they're just coming at it from a completely different position to a referee.
Such as sort of the professional game as well, though, with all due respect to coaches and fans, in the major leagues around the world, we still have issues with things that go on the sidelines and referees, even with VAR. So it's a really, really difficult topic, the difficult subject to sort of master and try and perfect this. Would you say, what about you, Ricky? What's your thoughts on it? What's your experience been?
It's a really difficult job, isn't it? Really difficult. I remember when it got I'm not sure how long ago it was, but the referees in the Premier League ended up getting a big pay rise to make it a full-time employment, basically. And I think that did something. I think that helped in some regards because people can see it as a bit of a career path. At the youth level, it is a difficult one. And Paul mentioned something there about communication and the laws of the game. And those two things, I feel, for the refs, it's important to have a balance with both. You've obviously got to know the laws, and the laws are changing quite regularly, it seems. But then I think it's a little bit like a coach-player relationship. You've got to be able to communicate to the players, to the parents, to the coach. And for the most part, when I've seen referees do that and say, look, I might have got that one wrong, forgive me for that one, but I'm trying my best. Just, this is what I saw. I'm sorry you saw it differently. Those types of communication, I think, really help build the relationship. But it's, like I say, it's a balance. And I think the communication one is probably the biggest. If we want to make it a little bit easier for the refs and they want to make it a little bit easier for themselves, they've got to be able to communicate. And that's a skill in itself.
It
What do you
is a
think?
skill in it.
Sorry.
Go on, Phil.
No, carry on, Paul. Carry on.
Well, it is a skill in itself, and that's why it's so important. Obviously, you do have to know the laws of the game, but more importantly than knowing the laws is being able to communicate, actually. And like you just said, it's the same as coach player. Understanding the X's and O's of football and being able to coach those X's and O's, great. Understanding people and being able to connect with the players, much more important. And it's just the same thing for referees. If you're an expert communicator, you can be a good referee. Obviously, you do need to have some grasp of the laws, but if you're not 100% on the laws of the game, but you're an expert communicator, you're probably going to be better than most referees I've seen in my time in youth soccer. And I say it respectfully to them because, again, I've been a ref for a long time, but bluntly, the standard is not great. And there's an arrogance on the part of most referees or many refs that just don't want to engage or communicate with players and coaches. And that's the biggest part of the game. I wrote an ebook actually many years ago for refs, specifically on communication to help them improve their communication with players, particularly for new referees. And that ebook was translated into a lot of different languages and used by referee associations in different countries to help educate the refs. And it was just centered all around communication. And one thing you just mentioned, Ricky, if a ref says, do you know, I got that wrong. I might have got that wrong, but you just saw it differently. Very rarely have I experienced that from a referee in 15 years of coaching. And yet I'll remember when not. Go on, Bill. Go on, Phil.
Carry on. I was just wondering why do you think they have such a difficult time saying they're wrong?
I think there's an element of insecurity and an element of being a bit sensitive because you don't want to have your position challenged, right? And this starts from referee education and the position they begin from. I often tell this to people. When I did my referees course first here in America, I was a ref in England, but I still had to do a course here. And the opening part of that course was an ex-professional UEFA referee leading it. And his position in opening the course was, when you are the referee on that field, you are God. And that was his opening part of the referee course. So what a position to put refs in right at the start. And that immediately makes many of them think, fantastic, I am in charge. I'm the big guy here. Nobody's going to challenge me.
Yeah. I find it's very interesting. I find, the referees that we come across are usually just good blue collar workers, and not saying that there's bad blue collar workers. I'm just saying good blue collar working, hard working men. And I just want to sort of set the tone that very appreciative to have them in the game, regardless of the mistakes they're making or the mistakes we make as coaches as well. I just want to let them. If there's a message here, I want to really, for me, on behalf of myself, as you know, Paul, you don't like me when I speak on behalf of you, but
because here's me criticizing them, and you're bigging them up. So you're hoping they're going to listen to this and give you more decisions, mate.
Well, maybe, but I'm not that kind of coach. I just give them a straight backhander. But no, listen. I mean, I just want to set that. I just want to set that tone straight away so really we can be like, listen, we are in deep gratitude for the work they do, and simultaneously, how can we make it better? And everyone's got to look at themselves. I don't think, and I can blame myself a little bit for this, but have I really, before a game, took my team in and said to them, right, this is what we're trying to plan to do today. This is how we're going to try and stifle the opposition. This is what I'd like our wingers to do. This is what I'd like our fullbacks to do. And by the way, we're going to respect the ref today, regardless of whatever happens. We're going to say, only the captains are going to speak to the ref. So no one else speaks to the ref. I haven't really set that tone before. And I'm only starting to sort of understand that that's potentially what needs to happen on my side while we're doing this, we're having this conversation. So I mean, for me, again, understanding that there's a deep gratitude, it has to get better, in my opinion, because that's the evolution of football. We're trying to get to a point where it is very mature, in my opinion, and and everyone can go to it and realize they're getting most of the decisions right. They're getting respected from the players. The players are getting respected from them, and I think that's what ultimately is going to help the parents when they see when they see, well, the parents on the sideline when they see that happening. So what can we put in place, fellas? What can we start talking about so we can start really thinking about how we can make this better and set a tone for everyone else? Because in my understanding, we're only talking about Southern California here, from the areas that we've been coaching. Obviously, understandably, we've all had refereeing experiences in England or around the world. I'd like to start talking about, what we can do to help the matter.
I think first of all, there's this kind of fundamental divide between teams and referees immediately, because the referee for that moment, for that 90 minutes or whatever it is the authoritative figure, and immediately then that's the rule maker, right? So immediately there's like a subconscious divide between everyone, because that person, that individual, is responsible for kind of looking at how things roll in the game and how things pan out to a certain degree. And I think a lot of teams, it's kind of ingrained in the game really that you've got to play the referee as well. You've got to navigate the referee as though he's some kind of non-neutral person. And the best referees that I've come across are the ones that don't really say much. They're seen but not heard. They make the decisions, they stick to them, they're authoritative in that regard. They don't come over at the start of the game and spend 20 minutes telling people about the shin pads and the rules and what they like and what they don't like, and just a short, brief conversation, right? So they're the best ones that I've come across, the ones that are just to the point and keep it really, really neutral. In terms of how to help them, I think Paul mentioned education. Obviously, that there is an educational part. I do think playing the game gives them a massive benefit if they've played previously, because there's like certain tackles, for example, that that just happen as a follow through, or stuff like that. So to have that experience is massive for me.
But having played a little bit definitely helps. Just the same from a coaching perspective, it does help to have played. And a lot of the referees, to be fair, that we see in Southern California, many of them are Latino. So they're coming from a soccer first background. Many probably have played. And it definitely makes a difference to have played. Michael Oliver, Phil, one of the best referees in the Premier League, probably considered one of the best referees in Europe. I think I'm right in saying he was on Newcastle's academy and he was a good player. So he had a good playing background to come from before being a ref. So it's probably no surprise that he's gone through the levels of refereeing quicker. And when you watch him and you see him talking to players, he has such a great rapport with players, really communicates well with them on their level. And that's a massive part of it. If you're able to do that as a ref, it makes the game easy. And I hear people talking about refereeing's hard and it's difficult. And I know I'm a little bit of a dick at times, but it's not hard. It's not difficult. And I've done it for 20, 30 years. It's not difficult if you communicate with people and you can talk to players on their level. It's actually easy because they're not used to being spoken to on their level. And when you do it, they have such a level of respect for you that it just makes officiating the game so easy.
Yeah. Well, you've been on the courses, Paul, being an official referee. Is that the right word? How would you call yourselves?
One course. Yeah, one course.
Well, you've been on a course. You've been on a course for refereeing. What do they teach on these courses? What are they talking about communication on these courses? Are they developing referees?
No, it's the same as it's much the same as coaching. Coaching's mostly about the X's and O's, and it's developed a little bit now and evolved. But refereeing courses may have changed since I did them, but it was about the X's and O's and the laws of the game, and not about how to navigate and communicate and perhaps massage the ego of a coach or players or parents to make sure that you manage the environment. And that's what it's about, being a good referee, managing the environment.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
Phil, I tell you what can help. What's helped the pro game in the MLS. It can also be used for the referees as well, and that's money. They should be looking. They're a big part of the game. It's a massive sport, the biggest in the world. They should be rewarded for what they do. I think a little bit more. I think that would give people something to strive towards in terms of career. And when there's more investment put into it, I think the standard of education improves as well. And so for a young kid, we've got players that are transitioning into referees, and in the youth side of things. And I think that if people can look at it not just as obviously the teams, and the teams are the main focus, right? Obviously, as it should be. But I feel as though the attitude towards refs would change a little bit if referees were given a bit more of a path, in terms of maybe a bit of a career path. And they weren't just getting a little bit of extra change, they were actually getting a decent amount. And I think that would give them a bit of a sense of pride as well. Like, okay, there's a ladder for me to climb here. Instead of just being that guy that just officiates, I can actually, make a living and provide for my family. I think that'd change a few things, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, some of these referees. Sorry, Paul.
That's only going to.
Sorry, I was just going to say something. Sorry,
to a small number of people, though, isn't it? Because like that career path or whatever, that's only going to apply to a very small number of refs, and the massive percentage of youth refs, especially, is just pick up a little bit of extra money. It can't really be a job. And I agree that they probably need to get paid maybe a little bit more, having done it. I mean, look, for young refs, it's a good way to make a decent amount of money. You can do 2, 3, 4 games on a weekend and make $300 or $400 in cash, by the way.
Yeah, I'm talking about this. I'm talking about starting at the top. I'm talking about starting at the top, starting with the main big leagues, and filtering it down through the divisions as well. Like, I really do think it'd make a difference. So yeah, there's going to be the elite refs, and I feel they should be rewarded for being the elite refs. I don't think it should be like a public sector aspect where there's like set or ceiling wages. I feel as though they should be able to, if they're performing well, they should be rewarded for that. Like in any other line of business. I don't see it being any different, to be honest. At youth level, yeah, for the young kids earning a bit of cash in the pocket, it is great. But I think if they've got something to look towards, then it might just change a few attitudes from the referees themselves. Because if it's just, we spoke about this as coaches, like, what are you doing it for? If you're just doing it for a bit of extra cash, then you're going to get that level of service. If you're doing it because you actually really like what you're doing, or you want to make an impact on kids or the game or whatever it is, then there's going to be a different energy surrounded by yourself for that. So I think it can have a ripple effect. I really do.
Yeah. Well, talking about energy, Ricky, just as a coach, I would definitely prefer 3 officials to come in to do a game that are just looking to pick up a little bit of extra money than them not turning up at all, and then the coach or a parent has to do the line. Or I think when they turn up in their referee's uniform and they've got their whistles and they've got their cards, and their socks are pulled up, regardless of how good a ref they are, they still, that's a good requirement for me, rather than a coach having to step in or abandoning a game because of it. So I know that's not ideal, but I just want to let you know that if that's what we're getting, I'll take that. Sorry, Paul, did you want to say something about that?
No, we need them. We need them. Like, we need them for games. Yes, you can run a pickup game without a referee, but we need them for organised games. And I think it's important. Obviously, we respect them from that perspective. Without them, we can't run the games and the leagues and the tournaments. So we need them.
Yeah. There's a massive shortage as well, isn't there?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do. I tried to bring this back to that still to be in gratitude and see if what we can work from there. I would like to just sort of put this out there for everyone. And that's, if you find yourself, whether you're a coach or you're a player or you're a parent, you find yourself frustrated at referees week in, week out, my suggestion would be, it's probably because of the level you're at. Now, I would suggest that, with all due respect to referees and players, the level that they're refereeing at is the level they should be refereeing at. And if it's not a very good standard, then there are probably referees that have done better and kicked on and gone further up the ladder to be a better referee. Correct. And ended up potentially in a professional way. And that's exactly the same for a coach and exactly the same for a player. We're all coaching and we're all reffing at the level that we're at the moment. And that's what we've got to get through. And I'm just wanted to, that's my philosophy. And I'd just like to say to any parents out there that are getting frustrated, if you want better referees, develop your child, get your child developed a little bit better, whether it be a boy or a girl or whatever age it is, and say, do you know what? I'd like to be at a better standard where there are better referees. The higher I've gone, the referees have got better. Do they still make mistakes? Of course they do, but it's just less, same as a player. So I always think that this is an invitation for players, coaches, and parents to say, if they don't like the standard of something, develop yourself and let's get and kick yourself on and take responsibility for it and move out of that whole paradigm.
Take responsibility. Spot on, mate. Take responsibility, take your own responsibility and do your own part. And from a player's perspective, I've found for a lot of young players, it really helps them actually, which they can do, I think, at a young age. Take the referees course. Go and take the referees course and learn about the laws of the game. And it immediately makes you respect referees more, because then you're like, hang on a minute. Oh, I get it. I didn't understand that was how that law was applied. So maybe I was wrong the 50 times I cried about it and the referee was actually right. And so doing whether it's a parent, a coach, a player, doing the refs course or just learning the laws of the game helps you respect referees more. And on the communication thing quickly, I just remembered one from my semi-pro days back in England. We had a ref for a game and he was exceptional. And everybody, players, our coach at the end just said, Jesus, he was brilliant. Managed the game brilliantly, communicated so well with everyone. And that was at whatever step it was. A few years later, Premier League, and he was a linesman. And he's still a Premier League linesman and sometimes a linesman, I think, in Europe as well now. And that was because he just managed the environment well and he was a good communicator. So the progression is there for the ones that are good and are able to do a good job.
And like we said about players, some players don't want to go further on. They just want to play the game and see what happens. And some refs are a bit like that. They're picking up their money and they're just content at being at a certain level, which is going back to what Ricky said about funneling it down. But besides from that, is there anything else that we would like to talk about? I'd like to just focus a little bit more on the parent side of it, on the sidelines, and their relationship with not just referees, but with their own players or players on the other team or whatever's going on. And I'd like to set a little bit of a foundation here by saying I'm in deep gratitude for parents as well. I think they really create a good atmosphere where it gives the player an understanding of what the energy dynamics are like from supporters, what the highs and lows and the moaning and the groaning and the supporting and the cheering. So I want to set that down and say I'm in deep gratitude for parents that come to the game. They travel very far, they give up their weekends and then, they pitch up their station. And then I there's a little part of me that agrees that they should have a little bit of a back and forth with the game. I think it's harmonious as long as the players understand that that's just the noise.
It's good for the atmosphere. The parents should be there and be loud, not loud, obnoxious, but loud to create an atmosphere at the game. I like that as a coach. And obviously that reflects what the players are going to experience at high school. And maybe if they go on to college, the sidelines are loud. So they need to get used to that anyway and deal with the fact that sometimes it might get a little bit crazy. And without it being that way, how do players learn to experience or deal with that kind of environment without actually being in it? So I think it's a good thing for parents to have some noise on the sideline. I don't, like I said, I don't think it needs to be obnoxious, absolutely screaming constantly, but having some noise from the sideline from parents, whether that's supporting the players or occasionally maybe criticizing them. Again, I think it's all part of the atmosphere and it's fine with me. I don't know how you see it, Ricky.
No, I think that I think the clubs have a responsibility to set the kind of guidelines for the parents in a way. And that's something that we did early on. We set the guidelines and we sent out some information and it wasn't just sent out once, it was sent out over the course of the season. Look, don't shout at referees, number one. In fact, don't even interact with a referee. If you're supporting your son or your daughter, that's great. And we just gave them, throughout the course of the season, we'd give them a few little tips. Like, for example, don't tell them to shoot when they're on the halfway line, for example, because that's something that some of them do. And that, again, comes down to education and maybe a little bit of the game being adopted and not quite understanding exactly how it flowed. But I think that the clubs have a responsibility to not just the coach can set the tone as well, but if everyone at the club, all the parents and players are aware of certain guidelines, I think that can really help with the refs and also make sure the atmosphere on the sideline is directed to something positive and they're not getting involved with nonsense, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there
No,
are some occasions.
I remember having a bit of an education session with parents and before either a particular game or it was a certain week. And you don't talk to the ref and don't get involved. I think that weekend I went and had a go at the ref in the first 10 minutes and got sent off. So that was a great example by me.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. There are some occasions though where, there's been a terrible, terrible tackle, like a career-ending tackle, even in like an under-15s game. And then, it's like there's no justice being done, no awareness around how bad the tackle was. Someone missed it or they just didn't believe it was a bad tackle. Parents are going crazy. And it's like sometimes these things are just they're gonna boil over. And I think that's part of the game. And then, I mean, what do we do from there, Ricky? What do we do in a situation like that? I know you've been, with all due respect, I know you've been in those kind of situations, especially with the girls' team back at your old club. Was that correct?
I think it's a fine line, right? Because sometimes I see the complete opposite. Sometimes I see a great tackle and everyone's up in arms because they think it's a red card, and it's not. It's like a really sweet, clean tackle. And it kind of swings from there to the opposite side. And I think the player safety aspect obviously is the main priority. And sometimes we have seen some horrors. So I don't know what to do in that situation. If someone's missed it, they've missed it. Like, I'm sure they've not done it on purpose. Maybe some of them do. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, in those situations, I think it's just natural instinct for a parent to just completely lose it if that happens. It's part of being a parent. So,
and other players as well. Other players can lose it, can't they? If it's their teammates.
Yeah, of course, because they know, don't they? They're there, and I suppose they just want the immediate justice, right? They want the red card or they want the yellow card or whatever it is they want to get that advantage, and that's part of the competitive nature of it. But yeah, sometimes refs just miss stuff. They just do. Like, it's some of them are not always able to get around the field at speed, and some of these kids that they're playing against are rapid. And it's a difficult job. It's a difficult job. And like I think Paul said at the start, everyone sees it differently. And you do have a different view on the field to off it. You just do. So,
Yeah.
We do. You do see it differently, everybody. And it's just a matter of perspective, right? And you're looking at it through your own eyes. Where does your perspective come from? Your perspective comes from your experiences. So you're only seeing, we can all watch the same game, right? We're watching the same game, but in reality, we're watching a different game because we're seeing it through our own lens. And my particular lens might be, I've coached for a long time. I've been a ref for 20 odd years. So there are things that I see. A referee that's just starting out won't see those same things. A parent that hasn't been around the game very long won't see those same things. So we're coming at things from a completely different perspective. And when you come at things from a different perspective, it causes conflict and disagreement. That's natural, which is why, that's why we have the problem with politics in this country, obviously, because everyone's coming at it from a completely different perspective. And you think you're right, but you're only seeing it based on what you've experienced, which means you're looking at the same thing, but you're seeing different things.
Yeah. So how do we keep it as objective as possible? Sorry, Ricky. How do we keep this as objective as possible? Because, if someone's there with a big gash in the side of their leg, that's objective to me. There's something dangerous has happened. And I think that happened to one of our 2009s, maybe a year or so ago, Paul. We've just done a tryout with the club, successful tryout, come from another team. And then in our first scrimmage, I think it was a scrimmage, you showed me on your phone from the VO of it, and it was a terrible, terrible tackle. And he was out for about 6 months after that. And honestly, I didn't, I think he struggled after that to get his game back. It might have been traumatizing for him.
Disgraceful tackle. And in that situation, it's hard, right? Because I went over to the ref and I just said, look, ref, it's only a scrimmage, but it was a disgraceful tackle and you can either send the kid off. I don't want to ask for yellow and red cards. I hate that. But I said, you're either going to send the kid off or we leave. And he said, no, it wasn't a red card. So I said, no worries, we'll leave. We won't play. Because that's the safety of players, which comes above everything, obviously.
Those tackles, I feel, they usually come on the back of the game being a bit tasty. And I think that the referees are able to prevent that, or at least reduce it from happening, by setting the tone early on. And if there is a bit of a funky tackle, just have a little word with the kid. If there's another one, and you kind of just maybe stop the game for a second and say, listen, lads, there's a few tackles flying in here. We all need to simmer it down a little bit. I think that that's the type of style that would help prevent those types of tackles, the ones you're talking about, Phil. And that's because it is the player safety at the youth level, well, any level really, but especially at youth level, when you've got the parents on the sideline and they see the kid getting whacked. It's I just think it can be.
Yeah, it's not great,
be prevented. No.
Yeah,
no,
so it looks like what we're talking about. It looks like what we're talking about here, fellas, is the safety aspects of the game and the correlation between reffing and safety. Obviously, if a referee, there's a goal goes in and he doesn't know it past the line, we can all walk away from that quite happy and be like, yeah, we scored a goal, but it wasn't given. We don't want our players or any players on the other team walking off with trauma or career-threatening injuries. And I think that's probably something about the modern game that I'd have to give a little bit of respect to. I didn't like the tackles, some of the tackles that went in the 80s. I loved the hardness and I loved the toughness of back in the 80s and 90s, the Roy Keanes, the Vinnie Joneses, especially back in the Premier League. I love that sort of stuff, but I hated to see someone with a broken leg, safety is a big one for me. I like tackles, but we've got to find a way of making it safe. We've got to find a way of doing that. Yeah. Just to like to wrap up this section of it. I'd just like for us to talk about our frustrations. We've all taken some responsibility here. We've all put our 2 cents into how to make it better. I'd like to tell, whoever's listening, where frustrations come from me. And I'd like to hear what your frustrations are, because I'm a human being and I get frustrated. And my frustration is I feel like a debt of gratitude.
You're going to use this as a therapy session then, Phil. That's good.
Absolutely. That's what LA's done to me, you see. Yeah. So anyway, what you've knocked me off track.
Sorry,
I'd like to. No, it's all right. I'm back on. I'd like to say, listen, I owe a debt of gratitude to the game of football, soccer, and I think I've just got as much responsibility as any other coach or any other player or any other referee, as we talked about in previous podcasts, and that we have to make this game entertaining. The only frustrations I have is when I see really beautiful natural flow with a couple of little things like the odd shirt pull or a slight push or something, and the game gets slowed down and the ref makes it about himself. And it's like, come on, there's a game here. People have traveled from all over Southern California to watch this tournament, to watch this game. Let's give them something to walk away from and say, do you know what? That was a bloody great game to be at. It was end to end or whatever the game, the process of the game went. But when that starts breaking down, I start getting a little bit pissed off because, we like I've just said it. I've just said it. That's all I'd have to say about that. And it's a fine one. But I think if we breathe that awareness, let's try and keep this game flowing and entertaining. This is what the game's about. What do you fellas? That's my frustration.
Yes, Phil. The game isn't supposed to be about the referee. We were taught by higher level referees back in England and some higher level refs that I've spoken here in America. If you're not noticed as the ref and no one's noticed you by the end and everyone's just talking about it being a good game, you've done a very good job as a referee. And so the idea is that you're
then, Paul.
Yeah. Look, you're supposed to operate. The idea is that you operate in the background. As a referee, you're there to facilitate the game. You're not there to dictate the game and dictate how it runs. You're just there to facilitate it for the players and the people that are watching. And you do that by operating in the background and being as quiet as you can while obviously managing the game and being assertive when necessary. And so, yeah, the point about allowing the game to flow, that I think that's what you're talking about, Phil, just allowing the game to flow. That's what you want on the sideline as a coach. A good referee allows the game to flow, again, by communicating well with everyone and by letting the small stuff. We call it trifling in referee circles. It's called trifling. Basically, stuff that doesn't matter. You let it go. So someone takes a throw in and their hand is not quite fully behind their head when they let it go. Let it go. It's trifling. Don't stop the game for everything, because the game's supposed to be about flow. And again, good referees are able to do that.
Absolutely. Ricky?
Well, good question, Phil. I don't really speak to refs much, I'll be honest. But one thing that I've seen a few times is when a team is winning a game by a substantial amount, let's say 3 or 4 nil. They sometimes at the youth level try to balance the game and influence the game in that kind of way. And I've seen it actually go the opposite way recently quite a few times where either we've been 2-0 up or the opponent's been 2-0 up, and then there's a clear what's the word I'm looking for? He gets involved in the game and those 50-50s go to the opposing team, etc. It's the team that's losing, and then suddenly it's 2-2. Yeah. And it's like, okay, now the game's balanced. I think that there's this element, maybe it's just in California, I'm not sure, of trying to balance things and keeping things even. And I think it's a subconscious thing for the refs, but I've seen it backfire recently on numerous occasions. And I think for me, the kids need to learn how to lose as well. So it's okay if a team's getting beat, they're getting beat, and that's okay. Not everything's got to result in a draw, and not everything's got to be balanced in competition. So if I was to pick one, that's what I'd pick.
Yeah, and that's what good refs do. If it's 3-0, 4-0, 5-0, 10-0, you give the decisions based on what you're seeing, not on trying to bring another team back into the game. That's not supposed to be how it works. It's misguided because it's this artificial thing again that creeps into all areas of society, right? Trying to have kids avoid difficulty or avoid a 7-0 defeat. No, let's help you out a bit. No, don't help them. Let them lose 7-0 and learn how to deal with it. Okay, we'll do a couple of quick questions to finish off like we always do. The first one is, what should I do as a parent in terms of going over to the team bench or the team tent and seeing to my kid if they need help? What should I do? I'll answer this one. Just don't do it as a parent, respectfully. Leave your kid. Once you get to the game and you've dropped them off, beforehand, obviously it should be prepared in their bag. If they're young enough, maybe you need to check they've got everything they need. But if they're of a certain age, they should be doing that themselves anyway. They shouldn't be having your help. So once they get to the game and you've dropped them off, you shouldn't need to talk to them again until you get them back in the car after the game. Leave them alone. Let them deal with the coach. Let them deal with the situation. Let them deal with some difficulty. And guess what? Maybe one day if they don't have enough water or there's something that they are missing, they probably have to deal with the consequences of that. And then they deal with the consequences of it, and next time they'll make sure that doesn't happen. We can't rescue them all the time. That's mostly the same answer, Phil. There's always going to be the odd occasion, right, where it's maybe a slightly different scenario. But again, how does a kid learn how to deal with adversity and difficult situations without being able to always turn around and go, Mum, Dad, help me? And the next question, again from a parent, is, I'll keep getting emails and texts from companies offering my son a chance to go abroad, to Europe, to training camps, or even go to schools. What should I do and how legitimate are they?
I think the world's seeing that soccer in America is a big, thriving business. And what I would say to that is this: there's no shortcuts, number one. And if you are getting asked to come over to a camp, I've actually seen, it's not even camps, I've actually seen them being invited over for like the whole of a summer or the whole of a semester. And some of the fees that I've seen are absolutely outrageous, as are some of the promises, by the way. We've had 1 or 2 kids at our club being told that if you come to this camp, you then get a direct line to Real Madrid or Barcelona. And, it just doesn't work like that, guys. It really doesn't. And you have to understand as well, there's already millions and millions of kids at those places of a very, very high level, extremely high level, who are also trying to get into those clubs. And 99.9% of them won't make it, such as the game and the standard. So I'd just be very careful. I'd have lots of conversations and I'd have lots of questions for whoever is inviting your son or daughter over to these places, because it's a massive commitment, financial, time, everything. And the last thing you want is to get there and it's just a glorified summer camp. So just be careful. That's all I'd say.
Tiny percentage of kids that applies to, right? And You come across all, for youth players going to Europe, by the way, come across all sorts of problems. Passport, being able to go there anyway because MLS have the rights to you as a player. It's a really tricky thing, not happening for for everybody apart from a very tiny percentage of people.
You've got to be the best player on your team.
That's the point.
One.
You just mentioned it. The reference point is you need to be outstanding here, as in the top player on one of the top teams, not a top player on an okay team, the top player on one of the top teams to have any chance.
Massive step. It's a massive step. It's a massive step up.
Brilliantly hosted, Phil. Brilliant, mate. That's all for today. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'll see you next time.